Looking like a scab right now. Okay, here we go. Let's talk about Chapter 12, which is titled U.S. Foreign Affairs from 1860 to 1914. U.S. Foreign Affairs, 1860 to 1914. That's what we're going to hit up right now. Okay, we're going to start off by talking about U.S. policy, number one here. Towards Native Americans post-Civil War. There's a lot of abbreviations up there. So U.S. policy towards Native Americans post-Civil War. We've talked about this number before. I think it's worth sharing again. In 1850, there were approximately 420,000 Native Americans. By 1900, there was 250,000 left. It's 170,000 with my quick math. Is that correct, Lorelei? 170,000. Injuries decimated everything. Okay, disease, forced movements. So took its toll on the population. Some of the things that happened during this time is we have whites. They move west. And of course, with the westward movement, we have forts to protect travel of the whites. And of course, with that comes some instigation at some point too, and just a natural instigation of, hey, you're coming into my land, what's going on?
Sorry.
You okay there, AT?
I'm good. No, that's my return.
Oh, that's right, that's fine, man. All right.
Freaking out like you're gonna get caught or something.
I was like, what's going on, man? Assimilation is the word of the day here. Native American children during this time, they're being forced to have a Christian education and would eventually be assimilated into white culture. Of course, that word assimilation, as all of you are well aware, or we've reviewed in the past here, it means to make similar. Okay? So that's what's going on here with the Native American children during this time. And so we lose a sense of culture for a lot of these people. We also have the Dawes Severalty Act. Severalty Act? There we go. Severalty. This was in 1887. Those of you who read the book, you know that basically it granted, Native Americans were granted plots of land to become civilized. Policy fails. Why does the policy fail? John? Yeah, and actually the policy fails and all the land, yes, you're right. All the good land was taken up by railroads and speculators. Also, if we know anything about the culture, we know this is going to be an issue for Native Americans because what kind of culture do they have? Yeah. No, okay, nomadic for some, all right, you're right. Nomadic for most of them. They live communal. They're in communal living. There we go. All right, which means what? Everybody shares, everybody cooperates together. There's no sense of one person's land over another person's land, so it's a foreign concept they're not used to, and they struggle with it. Or 1868 to 1869. We have the big reservations. All right. Native Americans were kind of forced out of the wilderness at this time. Many, of course, resisted, and so we have what we think of now in our history as the time of the Wild West. All right? Some examples of how they resisted here. We've got, of course, Custer's Last Stand. You guys remember reading about that? Which took place in 1876. I'm sorry. You guys gotta change this for me. I have an extra 6 in here for whatever reason. It should be 1890, not 1869. I have 18690. So I'm thinking, oh, I must just put a 0. But now I'm looking at it, it's 1890. My bad. 1890. Everybody got it? Sorry. Okay. So main resistance, we have Custer's Last Stand in 1876, which of course was against the Sioux. That's S-I-O-U-X. Some of their famous leaders, of course, were Crazy Horse and Sitting Bull. We've also got Chief Joseph with the Nez Perce. In 1877. Remember the famous line, from where the sun sets now, or from where the sun now stands, I will fight no more forever. And the end of all of this kind of comes with Wounded Knee, this resistance, 1890. Where kids and women are slaughtered, and it signals the end of the resistance and the fighting in the Wild West.
Isn't that with the
Wild, Wild West. Yep. I believe so. Moving on up here. Next few we're going to talk about pretty quickly. Next one is the purchase of Alaska. This is number 2. It gets its own number all by itself. I'm not going to write a whole lot about it, but you should be writing a lot in your notes, or at least an ample amount. Purchase of Alaska is number 2. Who do we purchase it from? Yeah, from Russia, Mother Russia, from Russia with love. I have Russia can't up here. Russia realizes around turn of the century here, actually around the late 1800s, that they cannot keep Alaska, and that they're afraid that they might lose Alaska to Great Britain, and so they might lose Alaska in a battle with Britain. So that would cause them to be, of course, weakened, right, on their eastern front. And so they sell to America to kind of create this buffer zone, right, between Canada and the eastern side of Russia. America agreed to purchase Alaska and the idea of this buffer zone. Russia helped with the Civil War. I have in my notes here. Plus, there was also oil, gas, and gold in Alaska. William Seward. Bill Seward. Was the man behind this, okay? He was, it was known as Seward's Folly and Seward's Icebox. And the purchase of Alaska kind of starts an anti-imperialism tone with many of the critics who were not happy with America purchasing Alaska. Of course, those critics who thought that Alaska was just this big waste of barren wilderness, they were wrong, right? There's a lot of resources out there that we weren't even aware of at the time. AT.
What year did you purchase? Was it 1869?
67.
67.
Thanks, Craig.
When did Canada gain its independence?
I don't remember.
Because Canada was still been a part of Britain at this time?
Yeah, well, it still is considered a part of
Well,
the crown, but I can't remember what the year was. Anybody have that? Someone want to goggle that real quick? Canada.
go ahead, my device here today.
Oh, somebody help AT out. J-Zax. Look up Canada real quick, okay? John, you need to crack open your netbook too, man. You can start to goggle some stuff.
John, I will teach you the reason the guys lost.
All right. Canada, independence, Great Britain. All right. Moving on to number 3. So, Alaska, anti-imperialism. You got to know that. Number 3 here is new imperialism. We've got Secretary of State James Blaine, who has a goal of opening up U.S. markets to, or goal of opening markets to U.S. traders. And through Blaine's objectives here, we have a couple of minor incidents that bring the U.S. to the verge of conflict. One is in Chile. So this is, you gotta know, James Blaine, who's the Secretary of State, all right? We have some conflicts that occur. He wants to open markets. And we have Chile and Venezuela. I think I spelled Venezuela wrong. Oh, I spelled it right. All right. You have it open?
Yeah.
What do we find out about Canada?
Well,
I haven't Googled it yet.
I couldn't remember what it was.
I know. All right. Here we go. So Chile, we had 2 U.S. soldiers or sailors were killed. We've got in Venezuela, there's disputed land with British Guyana. And so as the British are, I'm sorry, hold on a second. So these disputes that take place in Chile and Venezuela kind of cause some issue between the U.S. and Britain, and President Cleveland says that Britain was breaking the Monroe Doctrine, and so there leads to some conflict here with this new imperialism, and we get this revamp of wanting to update the Monroe Doctrine. Yes, AT.
Like their way to independence began in 1867 when they became a dominion, which is basically an independent country. But then in 1930 they gained full independence.
Okay.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, AT.
Anytime.
Excellent. I was thinking mid-1800s. 1867. We had 2 U.S. There was disputed lands with British Guyana. So the U.S. steps in with these instances of British kind of nosing around in South America, says that they're breaking the Monroe Doctrine. And then, of course, so this is, again, the idea, this upstart of the Monroe Doctrine picks back up. And then, of course, the next major stop here on our timeline is Spanish-American War. Spanish-American War starts over Spanish misrule of Cuba. And of course the Americans, being American, they support the Cuban nationalists. This is 1898. All right? In case you're wondering. A couple of things you have to know about the Spanish-American War. Of course, we've got yellow journalism. What's yellow journalism?
Making a political cartoon.
Yeah, exaggerating brutality. Okay. We've got the USS Maine. Right? Remember the Maine! Yellow press blames it on the Spanish. In actuality, what happened to the USS Maine? I think it just blew up, right? Boiler systems were, yeah, next to the keg powder, right? Yeah. That was a smart one. We have Cuban independence eventually being won with the Teller Amendment.
Was the Teller Amendment like actually like the actual declaration of war too?
I believe so. I know that the Platt Amendment, which is later on here, that says the U.S. can still intervene. So you might be getting those two confused.
No, I thought like the Teller Amendment said that we're going to war with Spain and then we're done.
But can we ask Congress for the declaration of war? Congress affirmation came in the form of a congressional resolution, the Teller Amendment.
Okay. Yes. I'm double checking right now as well. According to the clause, the U.S. could not annex Cuba, but it could leave control of the island to its people. So, during this confrontation, it basically said, it kind of appeased the anti-imperialists here, that we weren't going to be taking over new land. Remember that from the book? And, of course, one of the bounties here. Oh, I'm sorry, let me backtrack. So the Platt Amendment, P-L-A-T-T Amendment, was also important because it kind of, while the Teller Amendment gives Cubans the independence, what does the Platt Amendment do? Yeah, it says we're kind of like the big brother here, right? You can have fun, you can have fun. You can, actually, more of a parent. You can have fun, but not too much fun, all right? We'll step in if we need to. Sure, you guys want to dance, that's fine. But then they're walking around, America's walking around with a yardstick, right? Come on. Okay? Give us some space here, Pa, all right? So, of course, that gives Cubans a kind of a bad taste in their mouth, all right? We kind of look like a bully. There's also the Philippines. Oh my gosh, I missed the P. One L and two P's. Oh. Philippines, right? The Philippines was the first time that America takes over. This is, of course, we win this from the Spanish. It's the first time that America takes over a heavily populated territory. And the Spanish-American War gets America into the imperialism game. All right, so we've got U.S. foreign policy here. Policy of Native Americans, even though that really shouldn't be foreign policy, that should be interior policy, right? Or their what's that? It's kind of their foreign policy, not ours. We've got talking about purchasing Alaska. We've got new imperialism with James Blaine. Kind of reignites that idea of the Monroe Doctrine. We've got the Spanish-American War, yellow journalism, the USS Maine. We've got the Teller Amendment that says that when we go to war, and if we go to war in Cuba, we're going to make sure that the Cubans maintain independence. And the Platt Amendment, which essentially says, it's P-L-A-T-T, amendment that says, you know what, on second thought, if they get their independence, we will step in if we need to. So we're going to give them enough rope just to hang themselves here, okay? And then the Philippines, U.S. takes over after the Spanish-American War. And of course, we have the start of American imperialism. Now, let's talk about the arguments about imperialism and what people were saying during this time. All right. So obviously there are people who are against imperialism in America. And there are people who are in favor. Those who were against imperialism saw it as a hypocrisy of the American people. When it came to the Philippines, these people said, look, and actually everywhere, but especially the Philippines, they said, look, we're supposed to be a government of the people, all right, chosen by people, yet we are going to be meddling in affairs in Asia, which didn't sit well with a lot of citizens. Of all of the arguments here, so those are the against. We're going to talk about the reasons for imperialism now, and of all of them that are really politically correct, I think the first one takes the cake in our history here. Reasons for imperialism included the white man's burden. Why do we have to have imperialism? Well, you know, the white civilized man has to be able to help out his heathen brethren to become civilized. Doesn't this make, and I'm proud to be an American until I read about some U.S. history stuff. All right? So that's not really PC today, correct? But this is something that people believed during the time. Another one. Missionary work here, all right? Spread Protestantism to Catholics. That's right. Spread Protestantism to Catholics. And democracy to autocracy. Protestantism to Catholics, so there's a religious aspect of it, plus you're also taking democracy and you're spreading it around the world. Of course, this one is third on the list, but I think it's number one in the hearts of a lot of people who have power. Capitalism. Money talks, right? So yes, Johnny Football, all right? We've got natural resources and markets that we could exploit, I mean, potentially use in trade, all right? All right. Also, there's social Darwinism. Social Darwinism says that Europeans are the strongest race for a reason, and so if we are taking over these lands because, well, we're good enough to. There's the belief in manifest destiny. A term that was kind of going along here at the time. It's of the city upon a hill. It's a continuation of the city upon a hill, in which God made us the chosen ones. So it's our job as Americans and Europeans who came over to America to expand and kind of shed light on the great things that America has to offer to the rest of the world. And the easiest way to do that is to go out yonder and take over places and show them the benefits of democracy. And last one here is kind of underrated, I think, but one that will really help you in a FRQ, DBQ in the future here. The 1890 census. Why was the 1890 census important, AT?
It was the first time that, in the whole country, the person who did it announced that there wasn't a frontier line anymore.
What were you going to say, J-Zach? Absolutely, you guys are right. Yes, it's the end of the West. Remember Jefferson talked about purchasing Louisiana, and there was people who said that once we have this land to the west, we'll be able to repopulate it and fill it up for generations upon generations, an infinite amount of generations. Well, guess what? By 1890, it's full, all right? No mas, no more room. And so,
You want or history, you want 3 segments, right?
what's that?
Didn't you say you want 3 segments?
Yeah, I always thought that, if they were going to cut it off, I think the 1890 census might be a good time to start modern history. I don't know, 1890 or maybe 1914, right around the start of World War I, right?
Have you heard of Audrey Hepburn?
Audrey Hepburn?
Yeah.
Nothing to do with what we're talking about right now. I have. All right.
Her birthday.
Great. She's old.
Who is she?
An actress from the golden age of Hollywood. Anyways, let's continue with.
John Jay here, folks. John Jay. Next person I want to talk about with foreign policy and the open door. The open door note in 1900.
Are you sure it's John Jay? Are you sure it's John?
That is not John. I'm not sure it's John Jay.
Well, this guy didn't know he lived to be 180 years old.
He's not Henry Clay. I wrote it down. I wrote it down too.
I wrote it down. I was like, this guy. I didn't know if there's 2 people with that name.
Henry Clay was around for a while, but John Jay was around.
Why do I have this wrong in my notes? Who is it? Open door note. Whoops, this is the fun stuff that happens when you're recording yourself giving
John
notes.
Hay.
H-A-Y.
I wrote down John and stopped.
Because you knew that was going to happen, Craig.
The open H-A-Y, right?
Yeah.
Open door note. Hay sends an open door note to European powers asking and demanding equal access to Chinese markets. Remember, Chinese markets are kind of up in the air here. The U.S. steps in and tries to equalize things so that way nobody is fighting over imperial control of China because it's just too big of a market. So he wants equal trade. And so we start trading with China, and of course there's the Boxer Rebellion. Which takes place in 1900. Chinese nationalists want to kill the foreign devil. So we've got 200 whites who were missionaries who were killed What's that? Yeah, this was a crazy time. America joins in the first European alliance to overthrow rebels, so that's kind of cool as well.
They actually thought they could dodge bullets.
And we're learning more about
They're
this too.
martial art.
Oh,
Mhm.
shadow box. I got you. Matrix.
So they're all the Matrix.
All right. Let's talk about Japan. Do we have room for Japan? I think we do. Japan. Because Japan's important to understand here because they're going to become pretty big time in about 50 years or so. Japan gains influence after the Sino-Japanese War in 1895. And the Russo-Japanese War in 1905. Japan's this small island, but they've got a big heart. They've got some smart people, some smart military leaders. And so after the Treaty of Portsmouth, if you're wondering where Portsmouth is, where is it? Yeah, New Hampshire, Vermont. Which one? Is it New Hampshire?
Vermont. I thought it was Vermont.
No.
Isn't it all the same? New Hampshire, Vermont.
Treaty of
I think it is New Hampshire, isn't it?
Portsmouth.
Treaty of Portsmouth.
Oh, yeah, it is New Hampshire. Portsmouth.
Treaty of Portsmouth is in New Hampshire. That's right. You're wondering why did they settle it there? Your guess is as good as mine, but the Americans brokered it.
No, it's signed at the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard in Kittery, Maine.
Ooh. Nice.
Is that Wikipedia though?
It's not what the American pageant said.
It's also information.
And the American pageant says it's in New Hampshire. All right. So the U.S. brokers a treaty after the Russo-Japanese War. Japan wins the war, but they receive very little. They're pretty bitter. Okay. That's going to come back and bite us.
Yeah, well, it ends up biting on you.
That's true. The U.S. and Japan try to coexist with relations to power in China. After this, they're allies in World War I, but tensions exist and come to a head in 1941 with Pearl Harbor.
Oh, we didn't learn about that. Oh, you didn't read, obviously.
Jack, come on now. Get caught up. Everybody good?
A long way to go.
What?
He just slept with the book under his pillow and it kind of seeped up on the bottom. If you rub Vicks Vapor Rub on the top cover of the book, it'll do that, okay? All right, last one here that I want to talk about for this chapter, and then we'll take a break here for about 5 minutes so I can get some more stuff copied off, is I want to talk about your friend and mine, the true American hero.
John Jones.
No. Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt. Big Teddy. Theodore Roosevelt. Theodore Roosevelt was a traveler, an adventurer. Yep, same chapter. This is the last part of the same chapter. The last number 8, John. Went from 7 to 8. 4, 7, there was 6. All right?
4, 6, there was 5.
He's a tough guy. He's got a hard image. And he's not afraid to use war. Remember, he grew up. He was kind of a sickly man. He gained fame through the Rough Riders. Had asthma, right, when he was growing up. Had glasses. Yeah, had like 10 pairs all the time in case some got dirty or some got broken. Yeah. Or he's going to get shot. He need to in Milwaukee and have something in his pocket to stop the bullet. He gained fame through the Rough Riders attack on San Juan Hill at Cuba. The election of 1900. Tried to pit William Jennings Bryan. William Jennings Bryan, there we go. The anti-imperialist against Roosevelt, who was pretty imperialistic here, right? Yes, but he was on the ticket because he was the enslaver of, what do I have here, Malayans. Do I have my elections off again, Jack? No. I think Roosevelt was added to the ticket, though, for that foreign policy aspect of things. People tried to exploit him for that.
Which one? Was it when Teddy was going to be vice president or president that the political bosses got him up there? They wanted him to be VP. VP.
Yeah. Which is in 1900, wasn't it?
Because VP is the highest possible when you look up doing anything. I don't think Joe Biden does a thing. But I'm pretty sure there's some things.
Yeah, Roosevelt is given the nomination for VP from the New York political bosses, right? Because he's too strong to control. You guys doing okay here? This is bothering me now. All right. Okay. Remember, Roosevelt takes over after McKinley he dies. Kapow. And he comes out with this big stick diplomacy, right? That's something that TR is a big fan of. He's a bulldog, all right? He's going to go on the attack. That's why he was nominated for VP, to go out and help speaking campaigns. His philosophy is to speak softly and carry a big stick. Of course, I don't know if he really spoke too softly. But the idea is that when it comes to foreign interventions and foreign policy, we're going to make sure we have a strong military and intervene if need be. One of the big things that he accomplishes during his era in the executive department is the Panama Canal. Getting that all set up. This is kind of dirty politics here, folks. We're getting to the dark side of American history. Panama Canal is needed for trade. That's why it's there. It's also needed to improve military transportation from east to west. And so what ends up happening is Panama breaks away from Colombia. It's not news that America wants to build a canal somewhere in South America, or Central America, excuse me. And so Panama breaks away from Colombia in a revolution. Of course, America recognizes, even though they haven't won the war, they recognize Panama as an independent country. And we quickly purchased the land from Panama for $10 million. And so critics call this cowboy diplomacy. It makes America look bad. We also have a shift over with Roosevelt. Uh-oh. I'm being contacted.
No, I didn't. No, it's actually Tetris.
Nice.
Come on, John.
Basically, the Roosevelt Corollary is an expansion of the Monroe Doctrine. America will help Latin American countries in debt payoff of European debtors. That's what the Roosevelt Corollary, one of the things the Roosevelt Corollary sets up. Helps to keep the Europeans out of business of the American population here, or of the Americas, I should say. And so we'll assume the debt of any foreign country into a Central American, we'll assume the debt of a Central American country who owes money to Europe. Does that make sense? So we'll pay it off for them, then they'll owe us. Why do we do this? Why is the Roosevelt Corollary, why does he take this policy? What's the reasoning behind this? What's the meaning of it? Do you know, Danny? Do you know, Emily? Do you know, Miss Russ? Yeah, I do. All right, the reason why is because if we own the debt, then we can control then we can kind of control when it's going to be paid back. Okay, if the Europeans who have borrowed money to Central American countries and South American countries go to collect and the South American countries can't pay back the loans, what's going to happen next? They're going to take over their land, right? Ugh. And we don't want that. We want to be the big dogs. This is our yard, okay? Yeah. What just happened?
You like looked like a dog.
Oh.
When you said that.
There we go.
A little weird. Hey. I didn't know what my podcast said bark.
Moving along here, we'll include these two cats in here as well, even though they're not Teddy Roosevelt. Talking about Taft here. Taft came out with the dollar diplomacy during this time period. He wants to have foreign investments that will keep Latin America on our side. Wilson, of course, is known for moral diplomacy. He lets nations, he feels that when Wilson gets in office, he feels that we should let nation citizens decide on a leader. He gave money to Mexican resistance because they had a corrupt leader. So, you know, talking about foreign policy here is fantastic. And having to second guess yourself on everything written down in your notes is just great too. It's a good thing. It's a very good thing because that means you guys are on top of your game here. And Mr. Russ needs to double check some of his things he has written down for some of these elections. Okay? All right. Thank you. Any questions on Chapter 12? Good stuff.